take a step back, we're celebrating our 100th anniversary. And after 100 years, sometimes a name is just a name, right? John Michael Marino. Who is that person, right? Who was that person? Just a name on a banner. And what we did was we spent some time and effort trying to research the family. And I could be up here for the next hour talking about the family. I'm not going to do that because you're going to hear about some of it tonight. But we got a very special surprise this evening because with us is Anthony Marino, who is John Michael Marino's nephew. This was the son of John Michael's older brother. And with him also is his daughter Susan, who did the driving tonight, so thank you, Susan, for being here. But it is very special for us to connect with Anthony and part of the Marino family because for the last 20, 30 years, it's a name on a banner. And now we have some family members with us, and I'm really touched that you guys came here tonight. Maria, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to flip through my pages because I think we've already hit on some of the things I was going to mention. But first, before I start, I would just like to ask anyone in the audience who is part of the Heritage and Culture Committee, part of the foundation, or part of the officer board for the lodge to just stand so we can recognize you for all the work that you do. So I thank you very much for everything that you do, not just for us in the lodge, but also in the community. So I need my glasses because I hit that certain age. Okay. So I'd like to thank Jeff and the amazing staff here at the Port Washington Public Library. As Jeff mentioned, for many years, our organizations have collaborated together to bring you some wonderful programming. And I hope that we're able to continue this partnership. But like Tony mentioned and Jeff has mentioned, we have a very special treat for you tonight, an original performance that was commissioned by the John Michael Marino Lodge and the John Michael Marino Foundation to commemorate our centennial as a lodge and to recognize Private John Michael Marino. I'm not going to say more about him because we're going to really learn a lot more about him tonight in this performance. But I wanted to give you a little background on our one-man show performer. Robert Spiotto, Bob, holds a BFA in theater performance and an MFA in directing. During his extensive career, Bob has served on the faculty of various colleges and universities as a music and theater professor. He served as an artistic consultant and a director. Among his many work experiences, Bob has created or produced hundreds of unique and original shows. He currently serves as the director of events, clubhouse manager at the Country Point in Plainview. So just give me 1 second. No podium. Okay. So I'm honored to present to you Robert Spiotto in this original production, Son of Port Washington, Private John Michael Marino, in his own words. And I hope you can enjoy the show. Thank you for being here.
I see you in my dreams. So true. You know, I never got to hear that song, at least not until more recent times. But it's not new. Oh, no. It was first heard on the radio in 1925, written by Isham Jones and Gus Kahn. But it was definitely playing in the living room of our large granite house, 364 Port Washington Boulevard, between Marino and Newlist Avenue. Oh, and I happened to notice a new street sign, Middle Neck Road. Oh, but even more important, Marino Avenue. You know, I just had an opportunity to look for my house. And I'm sorry to say it isn't there anymore. And the neighborhood has certainly changed. So many memories. Oh, but I did discover something very Italian. I don't know who Uncle Giuseppe is, but he's probably a fine fellow. So here I am in this, my very temporary home. But thankfully, the stars and the planets truly aligned for me. After all, tonight, October 22nd, in the year of our Lord, 2025, I'm here because of the meteor shower. My apologies to you, to all of you, as my time is very short here in this place. A room that was, well, as you can tell, created just for me, for a brief visit. A chance to look back, but also, perhaps even more important, to look forward and to just look around a little. You know, the world here is a very different place from what I remember in the year 1918. And truth be told, I don't often get a chance to visit this place, very often at least. Actually, this is the first time since my parents, James and Stella, were well known right here in what was a very large Italian-American community in Port Washington, which was actually established in 1644. Here in Port Washington, this is the second largest concentration of Italians on this long, very long island. Oh, and in the county of Nassau, Port Washington became an important sand mining town in the 1870s. Would you believe some 140 million cubic yards were eventually excavated and used for concrete? And they were used in something called skyscrapers in nearby New York City. Oh, and including one called the Empire State Building. Oh, and then there was another one, very shiny, called the Chrysler Building, whatever that is. Oh, and then the New York City subway, which they began to build in 1900. But I'm not sure if that will ever really work. My father, Giacomo, James D'Amita was born in Nusco, in the province of Avellino, near Naples. And he was one of the first Italians to immigrate to Port Washington in 1885. And he changed his name to James. He realized quite quickly the potential of the sand mining industry early on, and he became a pioneer in the sand and gravel business. He did quite well for himself, became quite well known, and made a pretty penny, as we used to say. At the same time, he was running a boarding house and assisting many of his fellow immigrants arriving from Italy. At one time, there were as many as 24 of them there. Talk about a big, extended Italian family. Where was Uncle Giuseppe then when we needed him? Well, from approximately 1880 until around 1914, approximately 13 million Italians migrated out of Italy, and about 4 million arrived here in the United States. Now, naturally, many Italians were skilled, but many were not. And some really made an impression. Eventually, Amedeo Giannino founded the Bank of Italy, which went on to become the Bank of America. Oh, yes. Oh, and it appears that other Italian Americans also did quite well for themselves. Ghirardelli chocolates, Planters peanuts, Progresso. Oh, and Jacuzzi. And someone who probably would have done quite well with Uncle Giuseppe, a fellow by the name of Chef Boyardee. And that's just to name a few. But because my father had built this incredible edifice where he could bring people together and help them, which is at the true nature and heart and soul of that man. He had a built-in pool of laborers, and he could easily call upon them to work in the sand pits and offer them a job, a livelihood. Lavoro ben fatto, work well done. My father was a great and generous man. And he too, like your Uncle Giuseppe, also ran a grocery store and a saloon which the workers would obviously visit quite often. He married Potenza-born and one of southern Italy's finest, Stella di Ranna, and they set up a home in Port Washington, and they began to raise a family. Charles, Anthony, Nicholas, Caroline, and Teresa. My sister Teresa lived until 97 years young. And my poor brother, my younger brother Nicholas, well, he came down with the flu and was sick for about 2 weeks. And then it seemed as if he had recovered. But then on February 16th, 1932, he suffered a stroke. He was only 30 years old. And then there were my brothers Charles and Anthony, and my others, sister Caroline, although there were some who called her Catherine. Come to think of it, we were all named after saints. Oh, and I also had 3 step-siblings, James, Antoinette, and Rose. And then there was me. I was born on December 14th, 1894. Giovanni Michele John Michael Marino. Just like Saint John, the apostle, one of the 12 apostles, the beloved disciple, patron saint of authors, of love, and of loyalty. Now, his feast day falls on December 27th. Maybe that's why they named me John. And then, of course, there was my middle name, Michele, Michael, another saint, Michael, another saint, the archangel, a spiritual warrior. He battles evil. So did I. And how did my parents know that I too would become a warrior? Albeit briefly. I guess it was my destiny. Perhaps it truly was written in the stars. Oh, and speaking of stars, I'm what they call a Sagittarius. Optimistic, adventurous, a lover of travel, and perhaps most of all, a lover of freedom. Also, enthusiastic, generous, fun-loving, and I must also admit somewhat impatient from time to time. Some might even say blunt, but no one ever said I was perfect. Well, except, of course, for my mother. I enjoyed my youth in Port Washington, originally called Cow Neck. Which was named in 1857 to honor President George Washington, who actually stopped in nearby Roslyn on his tour of Long Island in 1790. I remember learning in school that Port Washington was actually involved in the Revolutionary War, primarily as a source of quarters for Hessian troops. And also a location for loyalist activities. I believe that the Baxter House, which I just discovered no longer exists due to a terrible fire, was one of the locations where Hessian soldiers were actually quartered. Growing up, I was fascinated by the trolley system that reached Port Washington in 1907 and officially opened in 1908. And when I was 4 years old, something called the Long Island Railroad, yes, established a Port Washington branch. And as for my early education, that took place at the Flower Hills School. That was Port Washington's first school. And it was a one-room school, which was supposedly built in 1757. It was heated by a wood stove. And guess who carried the wood? Yes. And speaking of wood, I remember that we sat on these backless wooden benches, very, very uncomfortable, with the boys on one side of the room and the girls on the other. So many fond memories of my childhood. Sometimes I think that's what I remember most, being a child. Maybe it's because I never had a chance to grow old. I hear that the older you get, the more you possibly forget. But what you do remember are those special times when you were young, when you were a child, when you were free, when your heart knew no limits. Everyone was your friend. Everyone was included. I wish I could go back. go back to my erector set, my Lionel trains. Oh, and of course, my big, giant 8-pack of Crayola crayons. Oh, and the games that we all used to play together in the neighborhood, like tag and hide and seek and marbles and even hopscotch. Oh, and our simple pleasures. Oh, do I miss those? No. Thank you. Grazie, mille grazie. Lorna Doones. Wrigley Spearmint gum. I can still smell it. Oh, what? Oh, Necco's. Oh, so crunchy and crisp and tasty. Oh. Bum bum ba-da-da-da-dum, bum ba-dum, bum bum ba-da-da-da-dum. Animal crackers. Oh, look at this, is wonderful. Oh. Oreos. I used to eat all of these. Not at the same time. But, Tootsie Roll. So much fun I used to have with my friends, and we would share everything. But we wouldn't share kisses. Well, these we would, but not, so, okay. Oh, wait, and there's more. Oh. Hershey's white milk chocolate and with almonds. I can't believe it. Oh, Cracker Jacks. Oh, so somehow I think that this was all I really wanted to be. I look at it now, and I didn't think of it at the time. In my own way, I was a lifesaver. Oh. Such incredible memories. I hope some of your favorites were there too, but that's what we used to enjoy, and we always felt a little guilty each time we partook of all of those wonderful, delicious sweets. And this is, of course, while the adults were busy in the neighborhood, reading the New York Times and the Sun, and the New York Herald. And I continued my education at the Roslyn Free School and, of course, Port Washington High School, although that's not what it was called then. It was the Main Street School when it opened in 1909. I also went on to attend Franklin and Marshall Academy in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but only for 1 year. I guess that's probably the Sagittarius in me. Because I longed to travel. I wanted to see different places, and I traveled to the great Central West, and I enrolled as a student at Valparaiso University in Valparaiso, Indiana. Think of it. Just think of it. In 1910, me, the child of immigrants from a land called Port Washington, New York, located on something called a Long Island, goes to college in Indiana. Now, to you that may not seem so bold, but at that time, how do you think I got there? Train. How else? No, not the Long Island Railroad, but yes, by train. Almost 30 hours, one way. But, very proudly, on August 13th, 1914, I graduated. I received my Bachelor of Pedagogy. It was a degree, and that focused on the art and the method of teaching. You see, I always felt that I would make an excellent teacher. I wanted to help shape the minds of others. I wanted to share knowledge, which I always had a thirst for. I wanted to be a teacher. And my dream, to return to Port Washington and hopefully give something back to my very special community. Because if we don't give back, what else is there? I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to add a measure of grace to this world in whatever way I could. Maybe even be an inspiration for others. And certainly to not be forgotten. About a year later, I did return home, but for a very different and much more serious reason. I'll never forget, it was August 14th, 1915, when I was summoned home by my family due to the serious illness of my mother. She passed. At that time, I lacked a thesis, only in order to achieve a Bachelor of Arts degree from Valparaiso University. And so, in October of 1915, I found myself in our nation's capital, another Washington, and I matriculated at Georgetown University Law School in Washington, D.C., where I played a very active part in debates and oratorical presentations. Still, I was restless. I still wanted to make a difference. And that opportunity came along when I was drafted. And so, on April 29th, 1918, I was inducted into the U.S. National Army, missing just 5 weeks before obtaining my Bachelor of Law degree from Georgetown. I asked for a deferment, but it was denied. Yeah, yes. I even wrote, would like to finish law school. But they didn't listen. Obviously, my talents were needed elsewhere. I had always thought that after proudly serving my country, I could return to Port Washington, maybe even open my own private law practice. But upon being drafted, Private Marino had a new role, and I was assigned to Company D, the 316th Infantry at Camp Meade in Maryland. And after only 2 weeks, I was transferred again, this time to Camp Lee in Virginia, where I became a member of Company C, the 112th Field Signal Battalion. Not long after, my company was integrated into the 37th Buckeye Division, a National Guard unit from Indiana, rounding out the division, now at full war strength. I guess you could say that I was going to have an opportunity to make a difference, but not necessarily in the way that I had originally planned. Then, in June of 1918, the 37th Division became a vital part of the American Expeditionary Forces in World War I. And we got ready to depart for overseas from yet another port, not Port Washington, but the port of embarkation, which was in a place called Hoboken, New Jersey. Now, I came to learn that just 3 years before that, a fellow by the name of Francis Albert Sinatra had been born in Hoboken. I guess people know about Hoboken now. I understand he did okay for himself. According to the official military records, starting on August 2nd, my unit and I were engaged in an incredibly fierce battle, which lasted for more than 2 months. That was in the Vosges Mountains of eastern France. On September 24th, 1918, our determined division covered itself with glory in a battle at the forests of Meuse-Argonne, France. Oh, I remember how we encountered heavy rain for days, adding to what was already very difficult and very challenging combat conditions. There is no doubt that we believed that the 37th Division's enemy engagement would become one of the greatest battles fought by American troops in World War I. Our last significant battle during the Flanders offensive at the crossing of the Lys and Escaut rivers in Belgium. This was scary, to say the least. I remember. And not only were we frightened by the battle, but it was strangely impacted by the fact that the battle began on Halloween. October 31st, 1918, when the Germans unleashed a poisonous gas attack, along with devastating and, as I recall, constant machine gun fire. These enemy attacks could not and would not stop us. We were committed. And with a renewed determination, we put on our gas masks and we relentlessly pushed the Germans. Pushed them. Shoved them. Moved them back to the Krostauen Ridge, advancing through German lines a distance of about 5 miles or so. And I will never forget, this was during the night of November 3rd, 1918. Quite a memorable year. This letter, dated December 18th, 1918, was addressed to my father, Mr. James Marino. The present, and I guess the past, are now here. Yes. 1918, a truly unforgettable year, to say the least, for me and so many others. Can you imagine? The world, in 1918, the world was gripped by a pandemic. A devastating influenza known as the Spanish flu had killed an estimated 50 million people. How could such a thing happen? The RMS Carpathia, famed for rescuing survivors from the RMS Titanic, was torpedoed and sunk off the east coast of Ireland by the Imperial German Navy. It was a submarine, U-555. 218 of the 223 on board were rescued. Oh, and in 1918, the Ukrainian People's Republic declared independence from Bolshevik Russia. I'm not sure how that will work out, but hopefully, there will be peace someday. Oh, Woodrow Wilson was president. There is no higher religion than human service. To work for the common good is the greatest creed. Obviously, I would agree. Oh, and the year 1918 was a very exciting year for these birthday boys and girls. And from what I know, they went on to make quite an impact as well. Maybe you've heard of them. Ida Lupino, Bobby Riggs, Pearl Bailey, Jack Parr, Robert Preston, a fellow named Nelson Mandela, Leonard Bernstein, Ted Williams, Rita Hayworth, Ray Charles. Oh, and a fellow who somehow made a living working in the sewer, Art Carney. You see, in 1918, people were going to the movies to see Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd and Charlie Chaplin. I wish I could have lived through some of their adventures, as opposed to the adventures that I lived. And oh, also in 1918, speaking of an adventurous fellow, there was this swinging guy named Tarzan. Oh, and we were listening to some great songs. Oh, yes. Oh, how I hate to get up in the morning after you've gone. I'm always chasing rainbows. Bring back my soldier boy to me. And of course, the unforgettable God Bless America, which was written by a very talented fellow named Izzy Baleen. Well, you may know him by his other name, Irving Berlin. Oh, and yeah, he wrote that song in 1918 when he was 30 years old. I never got to see 30 years old. And he wrote it while he was serving in the military in World War I, just like me. But he didn't revive it until 1938. And in 1918, World War I, the war to end all wars, ended with the signing of the Armistice on November 11th. And then, a few weeks later, from United States Army Headquarters, December 17th, 1918. Dear Mr. Marino, I desire to extend to you and your family my most sincere sympathy in the recent death of your son, and to give you the assurance of his battalion commander that he died as you would have him die. Upright, honest, and true to the principles which he knew to be proper and right. As you change the blue star of his service flag to one of gold, be consoled with the knowledge that the memory of him is engraved deeply in our hearts and in the hearts of his comrades, and that your son was a credit to the flag, which he followed to his death on the field of honor. He died for the liberty of man. Very sincerely yours, R.L. Mundhenk, Major Signal Corps, USA. And this letter. This letter in answer to an inquiry presented by the Honorable Frederick C. Hicks, dated December 30th, 1918, from Paul D. Meek, Captain, 112th Field Signal Battalion, Commanding Company. Dear Sir, in reply to your letter dated November 29th in reference to John Michael Marino of Port Washington, Long Island, New York, the records show that John Michael Marino, Private, Company C, 112th Field Signal Battalion, home address of Port Washington, Long Island, New York, and whose father is James Marino, died on November 9, 1918, of pneumonia. He is buried at Stadden, Belgium, grave number 100. The 37th Division took a very active part in the Flanders Offensive, forcing the crossing of Lys and Escaut rivers October 31st through and up until November 4th. John Michael Marino distinguished himself in this offensive. Night and day, through shell fire and machine gun fire in the face of the enemy, he assisted in the construction and maintenance of the lines of communication. When the division was relieved, John Michael Marino marched back to Tielt, Belgium, with his detail, arriving there on the 6th of November. It was a long march, and part of the time it was raining, but he did not complain. On the morning of the 7th, it was reported that he was sick. The medical officer attached to the battalion examined him and immediately sent him to Evacuation Hospital number 5 that day. Very truly yours, Paul D. Meek, Captain, 112th Field Signal Battalion, Commanding Company C. I was 24 years old. I never did get to open my law practice or to hear with my own ears the first commercial radio broadcast in November of 1920. I had girlfriends, friends who were girls when I was growing up. Never really amounted to much. I'd always hoped that someday I would marry, settle down in Port Washington, and raise a family. The things you get to think about when they can't happen anymore. I guess it was meant to be. Oh, and I wasn't there when the historic Beacon Theater opened in 1927 as a single-screen movie theater showing something called talkies. But it looks like it's still there. It looks a little run down, but it also looks like something exciting is happening there. Maybe if the stars align, I can be there for what might be a grand reopening, at least in spirit. And I would have liked to have met this fellow, John Philip Sousa. I understand that he lived in Port Washington from 1915 until 1932, and as you know, I was rather occupied during those first few years. And then, in 1925, an Italian-American fraternal organization was established in Port Washington. Mille grazie, Eugene Picon, Alessandro Volpe, and Fra Paolo brothers. Oh, tre paesani who recruited members for an organization called the Order Sons of Italy in America. They established a lodge which received its charter on November 22nd, 1925. Dr. Eugene Calvelli Sr. was its first venerable. Oh, now, venerable, that's probably a word that you don't use much these days. But it is a term of great respect and admiration, usually bestowed upon someone of great character and virtue. The lodge held their meetings and social gatherings at the Bayview Avenue Synagogue. Oy vey Maria. But then in November of 1925, that lodge had a new name. Well, much to my shock and delight, it was named after me. The Order Sons of Italy in America, John Michael Marino Lodge. And if that wasn't enough, numero 1389, number 1389. Grazie. Mille grazie. I don't know what to say. I was so proud when this information came to me. And I was, of course, extremely proud to say that I was the first Port Washington American of Italian ancestry, to give my life while serving, while proudly serving my country. And then, in 1949, John De Torre spearheaded the construction of a command site known as Villa Nova. That was on Main Street where the meetings and social gatherings took place. Now I think it's a bank. Oh, but I watched. I watched as the years passed and as several amazing and determined, concerned individuals tried for many years to find my headstone and gravesite in Belgium and to hopefully return my remains. But to no avail. Was it possible that I had been moved? Unfortunately, the Stadden Military Cemetery had no information. Or perhaps they were unwilling to share the information they had. I never quite discovered that, and perhaps it's just as well. And at the time, there were no other family members who could supply any additional information. Eventually, all things for the best. Eventually, thanks to some very determined and persistent individuals who surmised that my father had something to do with all this, of course he did, discovered that I had returned home, where I now reside, or should I say, where I rest in peace, in the Holyrood Cemetery in Westbury. So many things I never got to do, or witness, or experience. But one thing I can say that perhaps many others can't is that I gave my life for my country, for my flag. For so many that came before me, who died, who gave their lives so that we could live freely and hopefully unafraid. Hopefully. I don't know how many brave Italian Americans were killed in World War I. They don't tell us that. But I can tell you that we made up about 12% of the U.S. forces and accounted for more than 10% of total war casualties. I never had the chance to live a full and rich life. But I wouldn't trade the life I had and the life I was able to give. And perhaps the mark that I've actually made. So maybe, and I think about this often, maybe I did have an impact on those around me. Maybe I did. Maybe my name and my memory will live on and continue to have some recognition, at least for 100 years. And my purpose, and the purpose of that fine and important organization that bears witness to my name, sacrifice. I pray. So thankfully, and with a full and grateful heart, I know, at least now, that I will be remembered by generations to come. Thanks to the lodge named in my honor. I've watched as so many members have joined over the years and have contributed to so many cultural and educational events and activities. People from all walks of life. And yes, teachers. To have still been one of those. But maybe in my own way, I have taught some lessons and may continue to do so. And that lodge will continue to celebrate the Italian-American experience and our rich and important Italian-American legacy. How proud I am to know that John Michael Marino, will be remembered in such a way. And more important, remembered as a true son of Port Washington. Written during World War I, this song tells of the parting of a soldier and his sweetheart. The title comes from the final line of the chorus. Smile the while you kiss me, sad adieu. When the clouds roll by, I'll come to you. Then the skies will seem more blue. Down in Lover's Lane, my dearie. Wedding bells will ring so merrily. Every tear will be a memory. So wait and pray each night for me.
Smile the while you
until
kiss me,
we meet again.
When the clouds roll by, I'll come to you. Then the skies will seem more blue. Down in Lover's Lane, my dear.
Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? Sediti. Any questions? I know we didn't discuss and we didn't talk about any kind of Q&A, but I don't know, I always like those, and I always feel like, especially with something as unique as this, which, you know, yes, ma'am, of course, no, I can see, yeah. You grew up on Marino Avenue, okay. Here it is. That's the picture. That's the house. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to answer a question that some of you or one of you might ask, but I'll answer it before you ask it, as is my wont. You might ask, Bob, what made you do this, or how did this all come about? Because I don't know if any of you really know how this came about. Or do you? No. Okay. Would you like to know? Okay, good. All right. I think I saved the article. It's probably in my file. But there was a half-page article on the anniversary in Newsday many, many, many months ago. Okay? You may remember that article, especially those of you in Port. You probably saw full, a good-sized half-page. Few pages in on the left-hand side on the top. I will never forget it. I still get the paper. I still read the paper. I still like getting the paper. I like the dirty hands. I like turning the pages. I like ripping things out. When I saw this article, I don't know, but I felt something. I read it, and I just felt like I needed to do something, and I still don't know why. But when I read it, I don't know if there was just this overwhelming connection. There's no Marino in any connection to my family anywhere as far as I know. And yet, and I'm a firm believer in spirit and ancestors and energies, and I've become more involved with that over the years because I sense them, I see them, I feel them, I'm aware of them. I read that article and I was immediately affected by it. And then I went after Maria. Right? I tore that article out. That went in my bag. I went to work, and I'm sure that it was a matter of a couple of days. And I did some research first, and I looked up a few things. And I just felt like I wanted to do something. And because I knew that this was an anniversary, it seemed appropriate. I'm always looking for interesting and new projects, even though I have so many different things going on in my life in general, just working. But I just felt an overwhelming, I get a little brush when I talk about it, and that I felt the need to create something. And I had no idea what it was going to be. It's not like many of my other shows that I do. Many of my other shows, some are serious, and some deal with poetry and music, and my Danny Kaye and my Joel Grey and my Primo Levi and my P.T. Barnum and my Giuseppe Garibaldi. Yeah, there are a lot of Italians in there, just so you know. My Michelangelo. But this one just felt like I needed to do it. And so I sent a proposal, and we started talking. I think we talked once or twice maybe on the phone, and then it was all emails. It was all emails. I always got the feeling that John Michael Marino was probably laughing about the communication, even though letters were such an important part in his day, yes, but we were consistently emailing. And the first time Maria and I set eyes on each other was tonight. And I want to just say here and now, I am so indebted to you and so grateful to you that you received the information and that you felt so much at ease and that you were willing to do it. Because again, I felt the need. So thank you. A short life, how do you expand on it? I obviously had to take a little poetic license here and give a sense of the world, and I thought, what is going to be my conceit? So my conceit was that I wasn't going to be a 24-year-old man, but I could be the man that he might have become, and looking back on the life he lived and the one that he was still so very proud of. So that was the conceit I went with, and took the time to design the soundtrack and create the microcosm of world that could be inhabited once. It's kind of like an Italian brigadoon, if you know what I mean. As the older version, I can only come down and can only be here tonight to celebrate the anniversary, and I kid you not, when we have an amazing meteor shower happening tonight. Yes, none of that's made up. Obviously, there really isn't a lot. I mean, I stretch things out very slightly, but everything with all of the guilty pleasures, I don't know if he enjoyed all those sweets as a kid, but I'd have to assume with his friends he did. And they all were out at that time. You know, there's nothing not really authentic here, per se. The candy is new. It's not from the early 1900s. So if you want some candy, you know. All right. Yes, sir. Thank you. And thank you, sir, for your service. Thank you. Yes. Wow. Please. Nephew. Thank you. Thank you. That may be the only reason why I was moved to do this for you. It's very possible. And that's enough. And that's enough. Yes, ma'am. Well, Maria, and where is, oh, there he is. I mean, talk about emails. I thought I send a lot of emails. And thank you for every one of them. But I was also I was led to my own research, and then all of a sudden there was a lot of, connectivity between the research and your research and what you found and what you sent me and what I was able to find, and then what I was kind of able to kind of orchestrate and piece together, and things online. There's not a lot. We all know this, right? I mean, and you discovered other things, but it's just not a lot of information. But the letters are there. I mean, there is source material. I mean, this is actually, that's a copy of the registration card. That's the real deal, right? And there are some other things. There's other paperwork and records. But again, I also didn't want this to become too much of a show and tell, as much as I wanted it to really become what I like to call a tell and feel. Because that, for me, is the key. It's all well and good, and I've never portrayed myself, interestingly enough, as a lecturer, and I love people who give lectures, especially if they're engaging. This is the way I present a lecture, and with other things that I do too. I need to create this not only for myself, but because of what it hopefully allows me to channel and then, give to you, so that I have a similar impact. I know there won't be a lodge named after me, and that's quite all right. And that's totally fine. But I don't know if John Michael Marino ever uttered those words of Cervantes. When Don Quixote said that he hoped to add a measure of grace to the world. But I always felt that way, and I've always wanted to do that, and I try to continue to do that. Anybody other questions? Anybody have any other?
So what's interesting about those letters,
yes.
I'll talk to you after what you found, because I was actually writing something for dinner. And I actually put in it, his family probably found out after the war was over that their son died. Right? So they probably found out the war was over.
Right.
Thinking their son's coming home, and then a few weeks later,
Boom. Right.
The second letter that you read,
Right.
was that, you said it was some kind of inquiry or something?
It was a result of an inquiry. At least that's what I found. Yeah. In answer to an inquiry presented by the Honorable Frederick C. Hicks. And that was in December, the end of December of 1918. So almost 1919. Yes. Right. Which clearly I also make reference to, and that's why I was able to take that and extend it just a little bit more and add a little extra, in there, that his father probably was much more involved than any of us might know. I think just, again, you're piecing things together, and you're trying to take the threads, all these little pieces of puzzle that don't quite seem to fit together, and then maybe try to create something. Imagine when you have a life, someone who has lived, 70, 80, 90, 100 years, right, and did all of these things. And yet, the simplicity of a man who lived 24 years and still had an incredible impact. So how do you weigh those? How do you weigh those? I couldn't help but make light of the Uncle Giuseppes. It just was the material was too good to be true. And I thought, what are the chances, right, that something so clearly Italian, I mean, a Korean nail salon didn't go up, right? Or I don't know, right? Or a bar, O'Flaherty's Bar and Grill, something Irish, but that an Uncle Giuseppe should go up there. I mean, when these things happen, you have to say, and even on the way here today, don't you think, and I'm coming down and I'm driving along and I'm getting all the green lights, the first red light is there. I swear to you. And I looked, and my head kept going, and there it is, Marino Avenue, and I just, I looked up and I said, thank you, I mean, it's just, and right before you all came in, and I have to share these things with you because I find them hard to ignore. I turned that on. I turned that one on. I came over here and I turned this one on. Had a moment. And then I went back here to turn that one on. And then it came on without me touching it. Now, please understand, I know why. Because it's on a timer. But hear me out. Because I took the stuff from home, right? And that's when you come in the front door, it's on a little plate, like everything's on a plate, drive my wife crazy. And that's there, and it's on a timer, and it goes on a certain time, and then stays on for 5 or 6 hours and goes off. But the fact that I just happened to go up there just as I'm getting ready to go off, and you're getting ready to come in, and I pick it up, and it goes on. I just thanked him. I had to thank him. Yeah. Oh. Could he posthumously receive his law degree? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, there's never been a John Michael Marino Day and a proclamation and all that yet, right? I kind of thought there would have been around this time, but, I think I drove Maria crazy because I told her, well, I mean, are you not inviting the president of Italy too and everybody else? Because I get a little crazy when it comes to promotional things because I left a message for Tom Suozzi. I left a message from Anthony Scaramucci. I called all these people. I said, especially Scaramucci, this is his town. Right? But, yeah. I don't know if I remember. I'd have to pull out my notes. There's so many. There were a lot of little things. But anything else? I don't want to keep you much longer because the library's probably getting ready to close. They'll kick us out. One more?
How long does it take you to research and put together something like this? Because it really is incredible.
When did we start talking? I don't remember.
You initially called the day after the town of North Hempstead celebrated their second Italian Heritage Night.
Wow.
You also had heard Tony interviewed by News 12 and connected the 100th anniversary.
Yes.
And the first thing in the morning, you had contacted me.
It's true.
So, yeah.
Because I was excited.
You were so excited about
I
the
was.
100th anniversary.
I was. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of things over the years with the Italian-American community. I've been honored by the Sons of Italy. I've been honored by the Italian educators, the AIEAIOU, whatever it is. It's a lot of letters. Josephine's not here, I guess. No. No, of course not, because there would have been a glow around her, I'm sure. She would have said things right away. The Italian Board of Guardians. I marched one year a good number of years ago. They wanted me this year. I'm glad I couldn't do it. They wanted me to march again and lead the Columbus Day Parade as Giuseppe Garibaldi, because I have the whole outfit. I let this grow, and the sword, the whole deal. I did it a number of years ago on a cool day. Glad I didn't have to do it this year. Too bad the parade was canceled. But yeah, I've done a lot of Italian-American activities and been involved and known a lot of the Sons of Italy folks over the years. It took time. It took time. Because I had to really come up, as I said, and I referred to, I wanted to find a conceit. And then my process is that I do a lot of this before I start doing any of this or this. And then once I get going, then I go. And it's crazy, crazy, crazy. It's right. And I see if I like things, and then I go back and I visit them. And then I leave it, and then I put it aside, and then I work on something else. And then I come, because I knew what the deadline was. So I could kind of plan. I was still tweaking this up until yesterday. But that's the nature of the artist when you're doing things. Because if I had finished it a couple of months ago or a couple of weeks ago, then it would have sat there. And for me, then it's not breathing. For me, it's got to keep breathing. And then it's really breathing when I'm doing it, you know. And I don't try it out before anybody. I didn't read this to anybody. I just read it to myself. And I read it to him. And from Jersey. Wasn't Hoboken. Right, exactly. And, you know, for me, it's special to do something like this and to be able to honor someone. And I've had the pleasure of honoring a lot of other individuals in a lot of tribute shows that I do. But to have, you know, the blood in the room. You know, when I did my show, and I probably did it here years ago, I used to do a lot of shows here back in the day when Jessica Lay was here, if any of you remember Jessica. Jessica had taken an acting class with me at Hofstra. That's how we met. And then I said, well, I do a lot of different shows. Maybe you could book me. And then I think she booked me for like 6 or 7 shows here over the years. And I remember when I did my tribute to Harry Warren, who was a proud Italian-American from Brooklyn, Salvatore Guaragna. He wrote all the songs for the movies, over 1,000 songs. All the music for 42nd Street, I Only Have Eyes for You, At Last. Nobody remembers him. They just hear That's Amore, which was one of his songs, and they figure I have a show about Dean Martin. Yeah, Dino sang it, but, you know. But in any case, you know, it's interesting because I like to keep these individuals kind of alive in an interesting way. And when I did that show at the Sheet Music Society, a woman came up after with a friend of somebody else that I knew, and she introduced, and she said, hello, and this is my friend Julia. Oh, very nice to meet you. And she had tears in her eyes. And I said, oh, wow. I said, are you okay? And she said, yes. She said, I just have to tell you, Bob, this show that you just performed, this was an experience. And you remembered Harry Warren in a way in which my grandfather would have been very proud of you. I'm getting a chill because I could not believe that his granddaughter was there. I had no clue. And when I do that show, I tell that story, and I have the picture of us. And so, yeah, there have really been some special moments, and this I count as one very special moment. And I thank you all for being here, and I thank the two of you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.